The video of my husband and my sister having sex in a car went viral, and that's when I received two phone calls. One was a torrent of abuse from my mother, the other a warning from my mother-in-law. "You worthless disappointment. Her mother stole my man, and now she's stolen yours too? Do you have any idea how much effort I put into raising you? If this affair damages the Davies family's reputation, you can forget about ever seeing your son, Leo, again." My phone buzzed again, a message from my sister, full of smugness. In the photo, her face was radiant, the marks on her neck glaringly obvious. "Ellie, Ethan was amazing. He took me over and over again. I told him I couldn't take any more, but he was so relentless." I sat at the dining table, numbly swallowing my meal along with my antidepressants. Beside me lay a crumpled, worn-out letter. In childish handwriting, there was only one short sentence. It was late when Ethan returned. He roughly tore at my clothes. Drowsy from the medication, I woke with a start, opening my eyes to see a drunken Ethan. The smell of alcohol on him was thick and pungent, and his eyes held an inexplicable hatred. I began to wonder what I had done wrong. As soon as the malicious rumors hit trending topics, I contacted PR to suppress them. The company quickly released a statement claiming the images circulating online were AI generated. And I posted photos on my personal account, me, linking arms with Ethan, smiling brightly, while he looked dotingly at me. The rumors of marital discord stopped. After all that, controlling public perception as much as possible, I had barely managed to appease my mother-in-law's anger. As Mrs. Davies, everything I did was impeccable. I couldn't understand what Ethan was unhappy about. He didn't give me time to think. He was here for one purpose, the task of conceiving a second child. I lay on the bed like a breeding machine, letting Ethan have his way. However, the position Ethan demanded today was exceptionally humiliating. He wanted me to beg him like an animal for sex. He lit a cigarette, a smirk playing on his lips. "Don't want to?" My nails dug into my palms. When I looked up, my face showed a rare anger. Ethan didn't give me a chance to rage. He seemed to change completely. He gently hugged me from behind, chuckling. "If my wife doesn't want to, then forget it. I was just teasing you. You're my wife, my partner. How could I make you do something so demeaning?" Ethan tenderly kissed my cheek, as if the main character of today's trending scandal had nothing to do with him. He was always like this, provoking my anger with harsh words. Then he'd casually brush it aside, and my pain and grievances were dismissed as overreacting. Just then, Ethan's phone rang. From the other end of the line, Brooke's sobs could be heard. "Ethan, it's thundering outside. I'm so scared. Ethan, will you come be with me?" Brooke half sobbed, half pouted. Ethan's face was full of concern. He hung up, leaving a quick "something came up at the office." I grabbed his sleeve, using almost all my strength. "It's my birthday today. Will you stay?" Ethan paused for a second, then impatiently said, "I told you something came up at the office. Can you stop making a scene?" He forcefully shook me off and left without looking back. The room grew cold. I refreshed ins, and as expected, saw Brooke's new photo. In the picture, Ethan was kissing her passionately with the caption, "He braved the heavy rain to come to me." I suddenly remembered, when I had just given birth to Leo, I had an argument with Ethan over a minor thing. He left me in the pouring rain, without a second thought. I gave a bitter laugh. Then I noticed a peach-colored thong on the bedroom carpet, covered in suspicious fluids. It must have fallen out when Ethan left in a hurry. In an instant, my stomach churned. I vomited in the bathroom until I was lightheaded, my heart aching uncontrollably. I had tried to resign myself to my fate, but at that moment, I felt so dirty, so utterly defiled. Closing my eyes, the scene of Ethan and Brooke engaged in passionate acts flashed through my mind.
So dirty, so disgusting.
As I stood up, an envelope fell from my coat pocket. The letter inside was crumpled into a ball. I slowly unfolded it, my fingers tracing the words. My 17-year-old self, full of hope, had written this letter, wanting to ask my future self, "Ellie, are you free?" I gripped my phone tightly, finally sending the message. "Ethan, let's get a divorce." Ethan didn't reply. The next morning, my mother stormed into my room. She pointed at me and started yelling curses. "How can you be so useless? You can't even keep your man in line. Ethan came to your room, and you still let him run off to that slut. How could I have given birth to such a worthless disappointment?" Brooke was my father's illegitimate daughter. My mother and her mother had been rivals their entire lives. And I was born to marry into a rich family. My mother firmly believed that only if I married someone wealthy would my father change his mind, and her legitimate status would forever be secure. When I was little, my mother's most frequent saying was, To ensure you'd be a lucky charm for your husband, I endured the pain and waited 2 whole hours until the master had calculated the auspicious time to give birth to you. If you can't marry into wealth, will you live up to my expectations? So, from childhood, I was groomed to be a wife for a wealthy family. I couldn't eat too much because I had to maintain my figure. My academic performance had to be excellent because rich families preferred well-educated wives. If I failed, my mother would whip my legs with a thin cane, scolding me as she hit. If you don't marry into wealth, your life will be ruined. Not only will your life be ruined, but I'll never be able to hold my head high. Now, with that illegitimate daughter parading around, my mother's face was contorted with rage. A strange sense of satisfaction surged through me. My mother paced anxiously. Back in college, you and Ethan were so in love. He listened to your every word. Did you do something to upset him? Her voice turned shrill and grating. Ethan was the one who cheated, yet everyone thought it was my fault. A car pulled up downstairs. Ethan, who hadn't returned all night, was back. Ethan handed me a gift box, as if nothing had happened. He apologized to me in an affectionate tone. "This is your birthday gift. Last night was my fault. Don't be mad, honey. I shouldn't have left you to deal with office matters. It won't happen again." I opened the gift box. It was a jewel necklace. My mother, beaming, put it on me. "See? I told you Ethan cares about you. We have a family gathering tonight. Wear this necklace and really put that little slut in her place." Sitting in the car on the way to my parents' house, my long-held tension made me feel a bit spaced out. Ethan and I weren't in a business arrangement. Mrs. Davies never liked me as a daughter-in-law. Although my family was well off compared to the vast and influential Davies family, we were clearly insignificant. Ethan had almost been disowned by his family to force them to accept me. He gave me the grandest wedding in the city, vowing in a beautiful chapel to love only me forever. He would even take me on a plane to Iceland the very next day just because I said, "I want to see the Northern Lights." But vows eventually fade, and all I was left with was the empty title of Mrs. Davies. As soon as I got out of the car, I saw Brooke. My mother spat in disgust. That little bitch still dares to show her face, shameless like her mother. But soon my mother was smug again. She's destined to be a mistress her whole life. My Ellie is truly successful. At the dinner table, my mother bragged about how well I was doing in the Davies family and how much Ethan doted on me. She pointed to the necklace around my neck. "This is a gift Ethan bought for Ellie. Some people shouldn't think they can marry up and become royalty." Brooke came over with a wine glass, her gaze swept over the necklace, and then she burst into laughter. She pulled out a photo. It was Brooke's birthday the day before, and gifts from Ethan piled her room. And the gift box Ethan had given me was prominently displayed among them, only it had a complimentary gift tag on it. Just a freebie I didn't want. Only you, Ellie, would treat it like a treasure. My mother shrieked and lunged at her. She hurled every vile insult she could think of, venting her humiliating shame. "You've utterly disgraced me. How could I have given birth to such a useless thing? I should have choked you to death back then." I listened expressionlessly to my own mother's abuse. My hand slipped into my pocket, clutching that letter from 10 years ago. The gathering ended on a sour note. As we left my parents' house, a light rain began to fall. Brooke stood beside me, dialing Ethan's number. She said coyly, "Ethan, baby, it's raining outside." Ethan's voice came through. "Where are you?" "I'm at my parents' place. Ellie's here too. I'll come pick you up." Brooke gave me a challenging smile. I ignored her, walking briskly in the opposite direction. At the hospital entrance, I bought a bouquet of sunflowers. I knocked on the familiar hospital room door, but a stranger opened it. The word "grandma" caught in my throat. My heart skipped a beat. I pulled a nurse aside and asked, "Has the elderly lady in room 301 been moved?" The nurse shook her head. "You mean Grandma Rose? She passed away last month." The wall clock ticked, but I couldn't hear any sound. I felt a chill spread through me, my hand gripping my phone trembling uncontrollably. I dialed my mother's number.
Why?
My mother's voice was still full of anger. "Why what? What fit are you throwing now? Why, didn't you tell me Grandma Rose had passed away?" My voice was hoarse, each word slow and deliberate. Grandma Rose's health had always been poor. After she was hospitalized, I often visited her. But my mother had told me Grandma Rose had a major surgery and needed quiet recovery, so I should visit less to avoid disturbing her. My mental state had been poor recently, and I was afraid that visiting Grandma Rose would make her notice something amiss and worry unnecessarily. I never imagined I wouldn't even get to say my last goodbye to Grandma Rose. On the other end of the line, my mother was silent for a long time. Funerals are bad luck, unclean. I had a master calculate it for you. These 2 months are the best time to conceive, and the child born will bring good fortune to the family. The presence of death is believed to disturb the fetus. It's an old wives' tale. If you got pregnant and this affected the baby's destiny, it would be an irreparable loss. Your grandma loved you most when she was alive. If she's watching over us from heaven, she'd support my decision. I collapsed in the hospital corridor, my vision blurring. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face. My birth had to bring good fortune to my husband, and my child's birth had to bring good fortune to the family. It was pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. The corridor of the municipal hospital smelled of stale bleach and cold rain. I sat on the plastic chairs, the bouquet of sunflowers resting on my knees.
The
Yellow petals were already beginning to bruise, curling inward at the edges.
my
Mother's voice still echoed through the speaker of my phone, sharp and tinny, vibrating against my eardrum before the line went dead. If you got pregnant and this affected the baby's destiny, it would be an irreparable loss. Your grandma loved you most. She'd support my decision. A nurse walked past, her rubber-soled shoes squeaking against the linoleum.
she.
Paused, looking down at me with a mild, professional pity.
Mom, are you?
All right? Do you need some water?
No, I whispered.
My throat felt as though it were lined with sand.
No, thank
You. I stood up, my legs trembling so violently I had to lean against the wall for support. I walked out of the hospital, leaving the sunflowers on the empty chair. In room 301. They didn't belong to Grandma Rose anymore. Nothing did. Outside, the rain had turned into a steady, freezing drizzle. The sky over the city was a heavy, bruised purple. I did not call a driver. I walked down the wet asphalt, the cold water soaking through my thin leather flats, numbing my toes. For 27 years, my body had not belonged to me. It belonged to the auspicious hour my mother had waited for. It belonged to the diet charts and the posture lessons. It belonged to the Davies family's reputation and Ethan's midnight whims. But as the cold rain drenched my hair, plastering it to my face, a strange, hollow quiet settled over me. The grief was there, heavy and suffocating, but beneath it lay a clean, sharp silence. The kind of silence that comes after a long, agonizing fever finally
breaks.
My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. It was a text from Ethan. Where are you? My mother is at the house. She wants to see Leo.
Get back here. Now.
I stared at the screen. 10 years ago, a message like this would have sent me into a panic. I would have hailed a cab, fixed my makeup in the rearview mirror, and rehearsed my apologies so I wouldn't disappoint him or his mother. Now, I simply locked the screen and slipped the phone back into my pocket. When I arrived at the Davies estate, the iron gates opened silently. The grand, Tudor-style mansion loomed against the gray sky, a monument to old money and carefully guarded secrets. In the living room, my mother-in-law, Victoria Davies, sat on the velvet sofa, sipping tea. She was a woman of impeccable grooming, her silver-streaked hair styled into a perfect chignon. Beside her sat Ethan, looking slightly disheveled, but otherwise calm, typing on his tablet. My 5-year-old son, Leo, was playing quietly with building blocks on the rug. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. Mommy. Before he could run to me, Victoria cleared her throat. The sound was small, but it carried the weight of an executioner's axe. Leo, go upstairs with Nanny. Your mother and I have things to discuss, Victoria said, her voice smooth and devoid of warmth. Leo hesitated, looking at me. I forced a soft smile, kneeling down to press a
Kiss to his forehead.
Go on, sweetie. Mommy will come up in a minute. Once the door upstairs clicked shut, Victoria set her teacup down with a sharp
clink.
You're late, she said, her eyes scanning my wet clothes and ruined hair with deep distaste. And you look like a vagrant. Ellie, I tolerate a great deal of incompetence because of your family's compliance, but this is bordering on public embarrassment. The PR team managed to bury the video, but people are still talking. Ethan has a board meeting next week. We cannot have his wife looking like a drowned rat. I didn't answer. I stood in the center of the Persian rug, water dripping from my coat onto the expensive wool fibers. Ethan finally looked up from his tablet, frowning. Ellie, what is wrong with you? My mother is talking to you. And why didn't you answer my texts? I was at the hospital, I said. My voice was quiet, completely level. Ethan sighed, a familiar gesture of irritation. If this is about your grandmother again. She died last month, I interrupted. The room went quiet. Ethan blinked, his frown deepening. What? She died last month, I repeated, looking directly into his eyes. My mother hid it from me because she wanted me to focus on conceiving a second child.
She
Thought the energy of death would ruin the baby's fortune. And you knew?
didn't you, Ethan?
Ethan's gaze flickered. He looked away, clearing his throat. Your mother thought it was for the best. You've been emotionally unstable, Ellie. The doctor said stress would affect your fertility. My grandmother raised me, I said, the words falling like stones.
And you let
Her rot in a grave for 4 weeks while you used me as a breeding animal.
while
You were in a car with Brooke. Victoria stood up, her face hardening. That is enough. Ellie, do not use that tone in this house. The matter with Brooke was a lapse in judgment, one that Ethan has apologized for. A proper wife knows when to close her eyes for the sake of the family. I am not closing my eyes anymore, I said. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone and unlocked it. I brought up the draft message I had prepared on the walk home. I pressed send. Ethan's phone chimed. He picked it up, his brow furrowing as he read the screen. Slowly, the color drained from his face. What is this? He whispered, his voice cracking. It's a copy of the divorce petition, I said. My lawyer has already filed the initial paperwork. I want half of the marital assets, joint custody of Leo with primary physical residence, and a public acknowledgement of your infidelity. Victoria let out a harsh, dry laugh. Divorce? You? Ellie, you don't have the spine. Your family's business relies entirely on the Davies Group's supply
chain.
If you divorce Ethan, your father's company will be bankrupt by the end of the month. Your mother will be ruined. Have you lost your mind? Let them be ruined, I said. For the first time in my life, the threat of my mother's ruin did not terrify
Me.
It felt like a clean slate. You're bluffing, Ethan said, standing up. He walked over to me, trying to place a hand on my shoulder, his voice softening into that manipulative, gentle tone he used whenever he wanted to dismiss my anger. Ellie, honey, you're grieving. You're not thinking straight. Let's get you dry, take your medicine. And I stepped back, avoiding his touch as if he were covered in plague. Do not touch me, I said. Every time you touch me, I smell her. I smell the dirt from my grandmother's grave. It's over, Ethan. I'm leaving. I did not leave the house that night. To leave immediately would have been an emotional reaction, and emotional reactions are easily defeated by people like Victoria Davies. I needed strategy. I went to the guest bedroom, locked the door, and spent the night packing only what belonged to me before the marriage. My old books, my grandmother's silver locket, and Leo's favorite toys. At 3 a.m., my mother called. I didn't answer. She called again.
And again.
Finally, she sent a barrage of voice messages. I played the first one. Are you insane? Ethan's assistant just called your father. They are freezing our credit lines. Ellie, you worthless bitch. Do you want to kill us?
Get on
your knees and beg him. If you ruin this family, I will jump from the roof of the company building and write your name in my suicide note. I listened to her screams, my face entirely expressionless. The threat of her suicide used to keep me awake for days, vomiting from anxiety. Now it felt like a badly written script. She had used the same threat when I got a B in middle school math, and again when I wanted to major in literature instead of business. I deleted the voice message and blocked her number. The next morning, I met with Monica Vance. Monica was a legend in the city's legal circles, a cold, ruthless divorce attorney who specialized in tearing down old money dynasties. She sat behind a massive mahogany desk, her sharp eyes scanning the documents I had provided. The Davies family is incredibly powerful, Mrs. Davies, Monica said, tapping
her pen against the desk.
They own the local courts, the PR firms, and half the municipal board. If we go to trial, they will paint you as an unstable, depressed woman who is unfit to care for her child. They will use your psychiatric records against you. I know, I said. That's why we aren't going to standard trial. I opened my bag and placed a thick manila folder on her desk. Inside were copies of financial statements from the Davies Group's charitable foundation, the one Victoria Davies ran with an iron fist. Over the past 3 years, I had served as the nominal treasurer of the foundation. Victoria thought I was too stupid and compliant to notice, but I had kept meticulous records of the consulting fees paid to shell companies registered in the Cayman Islands. It was classic tax evasion and money laundering, totaling over $40 million.
$.
Monica's eyes widened slightly as she flipped through the pages. A slow Dangerous smile crept onto her face. Well, well, Mrs. Davies, you aren't as quiet as they thought you were. I was quiet because I loved him, I said. But quiet people listen. And they remember. This is enough to put Victoria Davies in federal prison, Monica said, closing the folder. But they will fight dirty. They will try to take Leo immediately to use him as leverage. They won't get the chance, I said. I've already arranged for Leo to stay with my college roommate, Sarah, in a quiet town 3 hours away. He left this morning under the guise of a school field trip. By the time they realize he's gone, the paperwork will be served. Good, Monica said, leaning back in her chair. Then let the circus begin. Within 48 hours, the news of our divorce leaked to the press. This time, the Davies Group's PR team couldn't suppress it. Monica had strategically leaked the story to an independent financial journalist rather than a gossip column. The headline wasn't Davies' heir and marriage scandal. It was Davies Group Foundation under investigation for financial fraud as Mrs. Davies files for divorce. The stock price of Davies Group plummeted by 8% in the first 3 hours of trading. Ethan called me 30 times. When I didn't answer, he showed up at the modest apartment I had rented near the city center. When I opened the door, he looked like a different man. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, and his eyes wild with anger. He pushed past me into the small living room. What the hell is this, Ellie? He roared, throwing a copy of the financial report onto the coffee table. Are you trying to ruin us? My mother is being questioned by the federal authorities. Do you have any idea what this is doing to the company? I do, I said, leaning against the kitchen counter. It's doing exactly what it was meant to do. You're a monster, he spat, taking a step toward me. We gave you everything. I gave you a life people would die for. I married you when my family wanted me to marry a diplomat's daughter. And this is how you repay me. You married me because I was a trophy you could control, I said, my voice ice cold. You married me because you knew my mother had trained me to be a perfect, silent doll. But dolls don't bleed, Ethan. Doll. You think you're going to get Leo? Ethan laughed, a harsh, desperate sound. My lawyers are already filing for sole custody. We will prove you are mentally unfit. We have your antidepressant prescriptions, your therapy logs. Go ahead, I said. And I will release the rest of the financial documents. The ones that prove you used the foundation's offshore accounts to buy the penthouse Brooke is currently living in. I'm sure the IRS would love to know how you classified a $3 million luxury apartment as a community outreach project. Ethan froze. The arrogance in his eyes suddenly flickered, replaced by a cold, sickening dread. You wouldn't, he whispered. Try me, I said. I have nothing left to lose, Ethan. You and my mother took everything from me. My youth, my dignity, my grandmother, even my right to grieve. I am a ghost in my own life, and you cannot threaten a ghost. Just then my doorbell rang. I walked past Ethan and opened the door. My mother stood there. She didn't look like the proud, manicured matriarch she usually was. Her hair was messy, and her eyes were red-rimmed. The moment she saw me, she raised her hand to strike my face. I caught her wrist midair. My grip was tight, hard enough to leave a mark. She stared at me in shock, her mouth hanging open. Don't, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. If you touch me again, I will have you arrested for assault. I have cameras in the hallway. Ellie, she gasped, her voice shaking with a mixture of rage and terror. Your father's company, they've frozen our accounts. We are going to lose the house. The bank is calling in our loans. You have to stop this. Tell the lawyers. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, I said. I raised you. She screamed, tears finally spilling over her wrinkled cheeks. I endured hours of labor to give birth to you at the perfect hour. I whipped your legs so you would be perfect. I sacrificed my entire life to make sure you married well so that illegitimate brat Brooke and her mother wouldn't look down on us. How can you do this to me? You didn't raise a daughter, I said, looking at her with a profound, aching pity. You raised a shield to protect your own fragile pride. You wanted to beat Brooke's mother so badly that you were willing to let your own daughter be destroyed in the process. You let grandma die alone so I could be a lucky charm. You are not a mother. You are a parasite. You ungrateful. Leave, I said, releasing her wrist. Both of you, get out of my home. Ethan looked at my mother, then at me. For the first time, he realized that the compliant, Fragile Ellie, he had married, was gone. In her place stood a woman who had walked through the fire and emerged as ashes, light, untethered, and impossible to grasp. Without a word, he turned and walked out. My mother followed him, wailing and cursing my name down the corridor. I closed the door, locked it, and slid down against the wood, letting out a
Long, slow breath.
The silence returned, clean and quiet. The legal battle lasted for 6 months, but it was a slaughter rather than a
Va.
with the threat of federal prosecution hanging over Victoria's head. The Davies family had no choice but to negotiate. Victoria Davies resigned from the board of the foundation and went into voluntary retirement in a secluded estate in Europe, avoiding prison only by paying a massive fine and turning over states' evidence against several of her shell company associates. Ethan's position as the heir apparent of the Davies Group was stripped. The board, desperate to salvage their public image, appointed a professional CEO
From outside the family.
Ethan was relegated to a minor advisory role with no real power, his reputation in high society permanently tarnished. Brooke, realizing the gravy train had derailed, tried to sue Ethan for emotional distress and demand ownership of the penthouse. The legal battle between the two of them became the new favorite gossip topic in the city.
The
Passionate, romantic affair that had once braved the heavy rain dissolved into mutual, ugly lawsuits and bitter public mudslinging. My parents' company went under. My father, unable to face the public humiliation and bankruptcy, divorced my mother and fled the country with his remaining
assets.
My mother was left with nothing. The grand house she had fought her entire life
To keep was foreclosed.
She moved into a small, rented room in the suburbs, her pride completely shattered. She tried to contact me multiple times, but I had changed my number. I instructed my lawyers to send her a modest monthly allowance, just enough to cover her rent and basic groceries. It was not out of love, but out of a cold, final sense of duty. I wanted her to know that the worthless disappointment she had abused was the only thing keeping her from the streets. On a quiet Tuesday in autumn, the final divorce decree was signed. I secured sole physical custody of Leo, with Ethan allowed supervised visitation twice a month. I received a substantial settlement, not enough to make me a billionaire, but more than enough to ensure that Leo and I would never have to worry about our future again. The air was crisp and smelled of fallen leaves. I drove 3 hours out of the city to a quiet, lakeside town.
Leo was in the
Back seat, fast asleep, his small hand clutching a plush toy. I parked the car outside a small, old cemetery on a hill overlooking the water. The grass was green, dotted with yellow and red maple leaves. I walked through the iron gates, holding a fresh bouquet of sunflowers. I found Grandma Rose's grave. The headstone was simple, gray granite, with her name and dates carved into the stone.
Roselyn.
A gentle soul, forever loved. I knelt down, placing the sunflowers against the stone. The tears came then, but they were not the hot, suffocating tears of the past 6 months. They were cool and light, washing away the last remnants of the dust in my throat. "I'm sorry I wasn't there, Grandma," I whispered, resting my hand against the cold stone. "But I'm here now, and I brought Leo." I sat by her grave for a long time, listening to the wind rustling through the maple trees. For the first time in my life, there was no one counting my calories, no one calculating the auspicious hour, and no one demanding that I beg for my own worth. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the crumpled, worn-out letter. It was the letter my 17-year-old self had written. I unfolded the yellowed paper, tracing the childish handwriting with my finger. "Ellie, are you free?" I pulled a pen from my bag. On the back of the worn-out page, against the granite of my grandmother's headstone, I wrote my reply. "Yes, Ellie, we are finally free." I folded the paper, slipped it into the pocket of my coat, and stood up. When I walked back to the car, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm, golden glow over the lake. Leo woke up, rubbing his eyes, and looked out the window. "Mommy," he said, his voice sleepy. "Where are we?" "We're home, sweetie," I said, starting the engine. "We're going home."